About 203 aided and unaided schools and pre-university colleges in the state that teach the language of Arabic. All these schools are under the scanner of the government. Now, this move comes after it dawned on the state government that the survey of madrasas in Karnataka, on lines with what was done in Uttar Pradesh perhaps, may not be legally tenable. While any kind of educational institution should be regulated by the government of the day to ensure good education to the children of this country or of that particular state, the key question is that whether educational institutes in Karnataka are becoming a battleground for polarizing politics. The Muslim groups, as expected, have opposed the move. But the government may arguably have a legitimate concern about what is being taught in all these institutions. Mere politics or a regulatory move which was long overdue. Our top focus on brass tacks tonight.
At a time when the Karnataka government is being accused of saffronizing education, the Bombay government has taken a big decision. Around 200 Arabic schools, mostly in northern Karnataka and the coastal districts, will be regulated. The government's reasoning is that a recent survey revealed that students in these Arabic schools are not being taught subjects like science, math and English, and hence they are not able to catch up with other students because they are not getting a proper education.
Asked our commissioner, assistant commissioner to go through it, and whatever the doubts we had, it had been proved in some of the schools. After getting the reports, we will take action.
But the Arabic schools, which are registered with the Karnataka Education Board, say they follow the necessary standards of education.
अल्लाह का शुक्र है कि मजहबी तालीम भी हो रही है और साथ साथ हिसाब भी, कंप्यूटर भी, इंग्लिश भी और हमारी मकामी ज़बान की भी तालीम दी जा रही है. ऐसा नहीं है कि नहीं दिया जा रहा है.
According to the Karnataka government, 27,000 students enroll at Arabic schools in the state every year, but only 2,000 of them make it to the secondary school leaving certificate level. But many have put the onus on the state.
All the government spend money on its citizens. The citizens include Muslims. Hence, Muslims' share has to be spent on them. All the money which goes in form of taxes from the citizens of the country is spent on the citizens back after the expenditure is taken care of.
The opposition has accused the Bombay government of targeting minorities.
If education is to be regulated, they should be regulated to all the communities. And they should not try to create a panic among the minorities. Karnataka state and India is a secular state, and you can regulate education, but the law should be same for everybody.
So is the regulation of Arabic schools for the sake of improvement, or is it a question of imposition?
All right, opening up this question to our guest as well. Is this a much needed regulation in all these Arabic schools? Roughly 200 of such schools and thousands of students are enrolled here. Or this is an interference of politics which is happening, which the opposition is accusing the government of. Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Vaman Acharya, who is the spokesperson of the BJP, Nagaraj Yadav, Karnataka Congress spokesperson, Mr. T.R. Prasad Gowda, who is the senior leader of the JDS, and Mr. Ratan Sharda, who is an RSS researcher and author, who is also joining us on the broadcast. We'll be joined by Mr. Vaman Acharya in just a few minutes from now. But Mr. Yadav, I'm coming to you first.
Yeah.
How do you see the move of the government? Do you have any objections to it? And I begin with the simple proposition that if there are thousands of students who are enrolled in any kind of institution, educational institution, which may or may not be affiliated to the government, there should be an oversight just to ensure that the young minds are trained in the right manner.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It is UPA government which brought right to education. It is our concept of saying that everybody should get education. Here in Karnataka and in UP, what is happening is only polarization of politics. For example, I'll tell you, the BC Nagesh, who is the education minister, recently said very clearly all madrasas, survey will be done on madrasas on August 24th. He said that, and he said by a month's time we'll set up a madrasa education board. Why did he do a U-turn? They don't know what the constitution norms are. Now they're saying it doesn't come under their purview. So they're going to survey the Arabic colleges which are giving education in studio, which are also imparting education in Karnataka state. In madrasas, almost around 600 madrasas there in Karnataka which are controlled by work board, which doesn't come under education department.
Yeah.
He is not even having that much of knowledge, which is his purview or which is his jurisdiction. He is not aware. The second part is that the Arabic colleges which is coming under, because they're all connected to the aided institutions under the education department, almost around 203 aided institutions. There are a number of unaided institutions are there. What I'm trying to say is that you should take the people into confidence first. Here you see that they are trying to target basically North Karnataka and coastal Karnataka. Why is that? Because North Karnataka and the coastal country is the base of BJP.
No, but Mr. Yadav, the truth is also that most of these Arabic schools are situated in the north and coastal Karnataka.
No, that is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The BJP's stronghold is North Karnataka and coastal Karnataka. That is the reason they want to polarize more and more by targeting the minority institutions. If they're really interested in giving a good education to the minority children, why not? We welcome it. But
sir, these are 2 points I want you to elaborate upon, and then I'll go to my other case. You use certain words here, polarization and targeting. And also the fact that government should be making sure that the children in minorities, communities get good education. Isn't one of the aspect of imparting good education regulation by the government? And how does one come to the conclusion that any kind of regulation is polarization? How does one reach that conclusion?
I'm asking you, the regulation has to be on all say, educational institutions. It should not be selective. For example, are they have got the same way of talking to any mutt or an ashram? They won't do it. Today they'll try to talk about Arabic colleges. Tomorrow they'll talk about convents which are run by a Christian community. This is the attitude of BJP. This is a hidden agenda of BJP, which is not correct. It's not in a good attitude. The attitude of BJP is completely polarization. They want people of minorities to go talk against these things, or Congress try to support these things, and they want to polarize the major community, which is not correct. But Congress always believed in giving a secular education and behave and administrate as per the Constitution.
Isn't that a little bit of an oxymoron there? Secular education. And if education should be secular, what role does religion really have in it? But I'm waiting for Mr. Vamanacharya to join us on the broadcast. Before that, Mr. Ratan Sharda, I want to come to you. Polarization, targeting of minority communities, and this is not a welfare measure by the BJP government. How do you see these comments coming in from Mr. Nagaraju Yadav?
See, first of all, actually I wonder, I was shocked to understand there are hundreds of Arabic schools running in Karnataka or anywhere in India. What does it give the students? As you give the figure, out of 20,000 students who are studying in Arabic schools, only 2,000 reach the high school. So are we creating a force of Arabic speaking unemployable youth? For what? And how does it matter whether minority or majority? When we were in school, we were told to take a certain language because that would provide you better employment opportunity. What does Arabic apply? What does it give you? So a very basic secular question is, why are we running schools which ultimately end up with youth who are totally disconnected with the locals, who have no job opportunity in India, anywhere? So where do they go? So this first question should be why these schools are running at all. Whether they are Muslims or Christian or Hindu, that is not the question. Secondly, if at all it is a running, how does it affect the minority? Why should minority identify in India with Arabic? Are we anywhere connected to the Arabic country? No. If you cite certain examples of Saudi Arabia, these people will cry, but we are not Arabia, we are not Middle East, we are Indians, we have different mores. If we are different mores, my dear friend, if you believe your Islam in India is different, then why are you forcing your kids?
No, but sir, the other side of the argument, Mr. Sharda, the other side of the argument is that while you may legitimately argue that there are no economic benefits for you to learn Arabic, and why are you even learning this language, while that may be a plausible argument, if a certain community wants this language to be learned by their children or by the younger generation because their original holy texts are in that particular language, I don't see anything wrong with that. Is there something wrong with that?
But why are we educating people? Tell me, what is the purpose of education? Having better life, you can earn your bread, you can mingle with the people with confidence and do something more for yourself. It is not for somebody else, it is for your own self. That is my point. And
but there was an interesting argument that Mr. Nagaraju Yadav also made, sir.
10% people end up in school, then that is totally wrong. No. Why should only 10% people go to normal
Mr.
school?
Mr. Nagaraju Yadav also said that will you draw a similar kind of a regulatory mechanism for the mutts or various Hindu religious institutions which are learning? Because even in today's day and age, there are a lot of young enthusiastic people who want to learn Sanskrit. And perhaps Sanskrit may not give you that kind of employment opportunities as we would like it to.
Yes, but Sanskrit is a rooted language of India. It is not coming from Saudi Arabia. My question is, what is my minority people's connection with the Saudi Arabia? Why Arabic is the language is so important to identify yourself as a Muslim? There are millions of Muslims who identify the local language, whether Hindi or Malayali or whatever.
Okay.
Here we are arguing about something which is totally alien to us.
I
And if
want
that
to
is so, if they are
I want to
learning
bring in
such kind
Mr.
of
T.R. Prasad Gowda also into the discussion. Mr. Gowda, the argument that Mr. Ratan Sharda is making is that there's nothing wrong with regulation. If there's regulation, what's wrong with that? And what is the need and necessity to run these institutions in the first place? Your arguments, your thoughts.
Yeah, see, it differs from person to person. Our perception is different. See, when we are all studying in the schools, and I hope it all comes under language section. Okay, first language you can choose mother tongue. We used to choose Kannada as first language. Second language is English. Third language is Hindi, and if anybody wants to take up as a language, even if it is French, Arabic, whatever it is, but first language will be given to the first preference to the mother tongue, and second it is a preference based language. If anybody wants to study Arabic as a language, let them go and study. There is no, but when they wanted to study science, social studies, or whatever it is, that should be the media is English. See, Arabic it doesn't going to hurt anybody. But if Arabic, if a person wanted to learn Arabic, let him go and learn. There is no harm in that.
Okay,
if
sir.
I wanted to learn Arabic, I have all the liberty to.
I want you to come to the second aspect of it, where the government is saying we are going to survey these schools. We want to know what is being taught in these schools, and the Congress party and the opposition, and I want to know the JDS stand on this as well. Do you see this as an attempt of polarization like the Congress party, or this is a much needed regulatory reform that should have been brought in the first place?
Madam, BJP government is here in Karnataka is no administration at all, to be honest with you. No law and order, no administration. Anybody will understand very easily. No administration, and they have introduced recently. They have introduced in Moraji schools RSS classes. They have introduced RSS classes in Moraji schools, and now they wanted to do all these things. But it's a kind. I agree totally, because anybody.
I don't think there are RSS classes which are introduced. RSS was allowed to conduct certain camps there. That was not a part of their curriculum. I think that's incorrect to say.
No, in Moraji schools, they are, see, these are all the things, they are just provoking. They are just provoking the whole system, and which was it was very nice. Now they are trying to just reorganize everything, which people, most of the 90% of the people are not willing to.
I take your point, and we finally have Mr. Vaman Acharya, who is the spokesperson of the BJP, with us on the broadcast. Mr. Acharya, good evening. Thank you for joining us on the show. We've been discussing this entire issue pertaining to the Arabic schools and the manner in which the government wants to regulate them for the last 10 minutes. And your political opponents, the Congress and the JDS, are of the view that look at the timing. Look at the manner in which you're doing without taking the community into confidence, because you could not do any kind of survey on the madrasas because you don't have the legal basis of it. Now you're going after Arabic schools, and this is merely a polarization move. Respond to these charges, sir. Mr. Acharya, if you can still hear me.
Yeah, one is there are about 200 in Karnataka, of which, but hardly some less than 2,000 students reach up to SSLC.
There's a huge problem with Mr. Acharya's internet connection. We've been trying to fix that. Mr. Nagaraj Yadav, you had a point to make. Please make that, and I'm waiting for that connection to be fixed.
From 27,000 to 2,000 people, students only are reaching to secondary education. I'm asking that let us have a survey of the government schools in Karnataka state and the corporation schools in Karnataka state. What is the dropout status? Why are they closing down the schools in Bangalore and Karnataka state? Government schools have been getting closed out because there is no admissions. Why is there no admission in the schools which have been started by the Congress on years back? Why are the students are not coming to the schools? They should look into all this thing. No, first the government schools which are in a very elaborate condition, which are not doing their duties on time. There is no appointment of teachers on time. There is huge scams on appointing teachers there. There is no infrastructure there. There is no classrooms existing properly. There is no toilets.
Mr. Nagaraj Yadav, I think your audio, you've muted yourself. You'll have to unmute yourself.
It is not a crime. Arabic language, they are learning Quran and basic Islamic studies. What is wrong with it? In that also, Arabic studies and the institutions of madrasa and this Arabic schools have also got called maktab, where they are giving math, science, and English education also.
Mr. Ratan Sharda, this is the point that intrigues me, that the present BJP government in the state of Karnataka has been there for some time now. This is not that this is the only year which they're in power. They've been in power for a long time now. Why break up all these issues so close to the elections? The timing of it is something that the BJP might want to answer, and we would raise that question to them, that whether it's hijab, whether it's other matters. The argument that the opposition is trying to make is that you're making education a battleground for polarizing politics. You're bringing up these issues because you've not delivered on the issues of governance.
Yes.
See, people are so cut off from their politics, from the roots, that they will make any excuse to create some sort of polarization. One person just talked about RSS camp in a school as if they were running shakas compulsorily in the school. So that is the kind of hatred they have. Coming to the education, as I said, if these people only 10% end up in the schools, there is definitely something wrong with the earlier education. So if there is something which doesn't, if we are financing some education which doesn't end up with the child getting any benefit out of it, then why not find out what's wrong with it?
No, sir, I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but the argument, but the question which is being put is that why only about a certain community? That's the question being asked, that why don't you do an audit of the government schools?
Why certain community feels that Arabic is their language? Why you have a problem with that? Why do you want Arabic as something which is identifying a particular community? World over, Muslims have their own local languages. They don't run after Arabic. Apart from reading their namaz and Quran, there is no reason for them to know Arabic.
Okay.
And if that is so, and if ultimately they can't go to school, my main point is, my dear friend, if they can't go to school ultimately, if they can't get educated, if they can't get jobs, then why are you insisting on this particular school? I am saying for all you can run it, but don't make us pay for it, which ultimately ends with a dumb student.
Okay, fair point. I'll take that question to other guests as well. Mr. Vaman Acharya, I think, is back with us on the broadcast. Mr. Acharya, if you can hear me, I want you to respond to all those charges that the opposition has made so far. The timing of it, so close to the election, this is merely a polarizing move. And what are the grounds that the government has for taking in, a matter like this? There's one more point that the Congress party is raising. They are saying that if you're so worried about the dropouts, and from Arabic schools, children are not really coming to the mainstream education, do an audit of your own government schools and see how many children really drop out. Mr. Acharya, please go ahead. All right. I think that's a problem with that line. I apologize for that issue. Mr.
I would like to answer certain things.
Yes, Mr. Gowda. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Mr. Gowda.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Gowda. Please go ahead. Mr. Gowda, can you hear me? Mr. Gowda, can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah, I can hear you.
Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead, sir. We are having some... Yes, I'm asking you. You wanted to make a point. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. See, madam, BJP, during this tenure of their administration, they are all trying to, they have not at all followed secular principles while installing their governments, while installing their candidates. They utilize the constitution. Indian constitution is the biggest constitution written by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. They are all benefited out of it, but they are not ready to follow the constitutional the mere principles of constitution. Now they always wanted to change the whole lot of things. I do not know what because of this. They are losing the confidence of the people before doing anything. I have been advising them not only me, our Supremo, former Prime Minister Devagowda ji, Kumaraswamy ji, everybody is used to advise them before taking any decisions. They have to take masses into confidence, irrespective of the caste creed. But I do not know, and we do not know why they what going to help them out of all these things.
But sir, I wonder, and I'm asking this question to you not rhetorically, but quite literally, that what does one mean by taking something into confidence? Because if you want to regulate particular institutions, somewhere or the other, it would irk certain people because they've not been regulated earlier. So what does regulating means, and at the same time, what does taking community into confidence really mean?
Madam,
Mr. Sharda, I'm coming
confidence in the sense that there should be a dialogues across the communities. That's not happening here.
Okay, Mr. Ratan Sharda, please go ahead. You had a point to make.
That's not.
I'm very amused by the kind of arguments, very weak arguments these people are throwing at the entire debate. Who created hijab controversy? Who polarized the people on hijab? It was one school issue. It was an issue of uniform, which was supported by High Court. Still, they went on increasing this entire, expanding the debate to a level where it became international issue. So, who polarized the people? Coming to the, sharing with people, talking with people. JD as a minority government supported by a bigger party. Did they talk to BJP or anybody else? What is the meaning of election if after the government is elected, they have to go back to everybody and say, Bhai Sahab, karu ki nahi karu? Should I do it or not? Please tell me. If that is the way you want to run the government, did Mr. Hegde, so-called Supremo, the word is wrong for a political party, but anyway, it's a family party. How can you say that you should talk across to people, then stop governing, then don't have elections, just have panchayats every time? This is such a specious argument that I cannot understand. And definitely do worry about every survey. Go to every school. See to it that our money, taxpayers' money, is not wasted. But don't keep on claiming victimhood on something which is totally useless kind of education.
Mr. Nagaraju Yadav, if this is some kind of interference on part of the state, then why should state pay for any of these institutions? Why should the state government support any of these institutions?
Perfectly, reforms are required as on the days change, as on the technology changes, reforms are required, no doubt about it. What kind of reform they are trying to do? Whom are they targeting? That's most important. Mr. Ratan was talking now certain things which is raising, who's raised the hijab and who polarized it. 100% BJP and RSS polarized why? How did the saffron shawls came into the education institution? This could have been sorted out in Udupi district itself. Why the education minister is not sorted out an issue? Why the MLA of that area wanted to polarize this thing, made it a big issue all over the country? This issue became a serious issue.
But Mr. Yadav, the argument runs both ways, right? The argument runs both ways that.
See, hijab issue could have been sorted out in a district level. They didn't want it to happen at district level. What did Ishwarappa's son did it? He distributed thousands and lakhs of saffron shawls. Is this a way of doing it? Mr. Ratan should answer this thing. What I'm trying to say, reforms are required. Technology, as the technology changes, as the situation changes, as the country grows, we definitely need a reform. But at what kind of a reform they're trying to do? Whom are they trying to target? Because North Karnataka is BJP based, and coastal Karnataka, you know it very well, it's an experimental place for BJP to polarize the Hindus, and they want to target these things.
Madhu and Rao, who is the spokesperson of the BJP, is also joining us on the broadcast. Sir, I took your point. We've been trying to get a BJP spokesperson for a very long time. Mr. Madhu and Rao is also with us on the show. Mr. Rao, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. We have limited time, so I want you to make your point. How is the government justified in taking the action that it has taken? What are the legitimate grounds you have? And if the BJP government feels that this is the much needed regulation, you must have grounds for it. Tell us what those grounds are.
My one, I think since the time is less, I will just sum it up.
Sure.
I was just listening to what Mr. Yadav was telling. I mean, it's sad that you want to see color and the religion in every aspect of life. The point is this. The point is what happens.
Mr. Yadav, let him make his point.
Can I make
Mr. Yadav, please let him make his point. No, Mr. Yadav, please. I will not allow one guest to speak over the other. Mr. Rao, please go ahead.
Now the point is
Mr. Rao, please go ahead. Yeah.
If there is a complaint from the students that they are not even capable of competing with the students of other schools, what do you expect the state?
Did you get a complaint from a student, sir?
I will tell you something. There have been, in fact, the minister has gone on record to say there were complaints which are received.
Then why did the government take a U-turn when it came to the survey
Now,
of the madrasas?
when the survey is going on, in order to check whether what is happening, and you come to know that the Arabic, what has been taught in the Middle East and such, that aspect has been being taught, and it is not even to the level of the other schools in Karnataka. Forget about CBSE and ICSE. Do you mean to say that the state should keep quiet?
No, the state should not keep quiet. You should regulate these institutions.
And
you
that's
should
what
make
we are
sure
trying to do now.
you should make sure
Try
that
to
they are up to the
understand,
standards and the young minds are not trained in a manner which is not amicable for them and for the country.
Who should be responsible?
Yes,
my question is, who should be responsible till now? What action had the Congress taken? How much of money was released? Why were the money not released to
Mr. Rao, another point that was rigged up in this debate, and I want you to answer this, which is that why did the government take a U-turn when it came to the survey of the madrasas? Was the education minister not aware about the legalities of how madrasas are governed in the state of Karnataka? Please answer that.
See, it's a question which it's a very difficult to answer in a way, because as a state, as a government, we need to take some actions. And if suppose say some actions are not correct, fair enough. What's wrong in telling that, okay, you're wrong, fair enough. We are not on that. My only submission is, are these Arabic schools on par with the other state schools? Forget about ICSE and CBSE. Can I ask this question to the Congress? What were they doing when the money was released? Why were the money not released?
Mr. Nagaraju, a brief response from you. Mr. Nagaraju, a brief response from you.
No, I would like to respond to say that the children of minority are all they are not forced to only go to Arabic school. They can go to any school. We have created so many schools. After BJP has come to power, the government schools are getting closed down. They should answer for that. Why are they talking about minority institutions? Minority institutions also are running medical colleges and other things also. Why they are targeting only Arabic schools is really because
Mr. Rao, please answer this question. And I'm asking this question. No, Mr. Rao, I'm asking this question in all fairness, because this point has been made a lot of times in this debate, that the government doesn't have the data when it comes to the dropout rate of the government schools. Why are you targeting a particular community, the madrasas, the Arabic institutions? Respond to that charge that this is polarizing and targeting.
Absolutely, it is an unfounded allegation by the Congress party. I think they are used to this. My only submission is this: if as a state we should not even consider taking the data from the schools, I mean, what are we to do then? Are we to just keep quiet and just sit quiet as to what has been done before? My question to Mr. Yadav, don't keep shouting, please. Let me be allowed to speak.
Mr. Yadav, please let him finish. Mr. Yadav, please let him finish.
I have heard you enough. I have heard you enough. All that the Congress party talks of is only of polarization. Let me tell you something. I do not want to get into all these things. When Right to Education Act, Right to Education was amended by the Constitution, why did they not allow the minority institutions to come under the ambit? Let me not talk about all those things.
Okay, I have last 1 minute. I have last 1 minute, Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao.
21A, Article 21A was...
Mr. Rao, one last question that I want to take from you, because the JDS and the Congress party have been talking about it. Mr. Rao, one last question that I want to take from you.
Let's not talk about polarization.
All right, let's not shout over each other. That's now how debates would be done here. Mr. Rao, I want to come to you. The timing of the move is being questioned by the opposition parties. You're very close to the elections. The allegation is you have not delivered on your poll promises. There is no good governance. And that is why you're trying to communalize the education sector in the state. Respond to that.
Well, that is an unfounded allegation. Each and every time when any government takes any call for that matter, it is based on some reports. And if action is taken, then allegation is made that it is taken at a particular point of time. If it is not taken, then they will say, oh, you have not taken an action. So what is the best time to do is left to the government. You mean to say that we did not have any information as to when it is to be conducted? I mean, I really do not understand. Seeing everything in a colored glass is unfortunate from the Congress party.
Okay.
We have decided to conduct this survey only in order to ensure that the education is on par with the introduction of the NEP. That is all. When the NEP is introduced, we want to streamline certain things and get under the ambit of NEP. What's wrong in that?
Well,
You
sir,
mean to say that
I
this we
hope
could have
as a
done some
citizen
2
of
years
this
back?
country that this leads to the reform that you're talking about. I thank you for joining us, Mr. Rao, on the broadcast, Mr. Nagaraj Yadav, T.R. Prasad Gaura, Ratan Sharda. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. Only time will tell what kind of reform do we see. And of course, the politics around it, this entire issue cannot be ignored. We're slipping into a very short break. But on the other side, coming months of back and forth, Elon Musk takes over Twitter. What does this mean for the social media giant and free speech across the world? This will have ramification. And what does this takeover by Elon Musk really means?
Okay with Kashmir going to Pakistan, something that has been contradicted, by those who are supporting the view that it was only and only a blunder made by the Prime Minister. But coming back to then Prime Minister Pandit Nehru's view, Mr. Kiran Rijiju, what, in your opinion, was this a genuine blunder, misreading of the situation, or is there some kind of a malafide do you suspect in this? Because you've spoken about the majority opinion in Jammu and Kashmir being given precedent over the view of the ruler opposed to the act of independence.
No, let us not go into the confusions which is created by some statesmen, some statements coming from some Congress leader or some people. I am not interested in going into that. The facts are before the public. The facts are not my creation. The facts are part of the records, and going by the records, it is very clear that the narratives which were being run since last 75 years must be now buried, and let us accept the fact, and the blunders were committed by Nehruji and corrective steps are being done by Modiji, and that is the fact. And I don't want to enter into debate. Actually, as I have stated, I am not going to give opinion on my own, because history is related to facts and figures, and those the events and those records which are there, this cannot be changed neither by my statement or nor by the undesirable attempts being made by the Congress leaders.
Congress, in fact, Mr. Rijiju, called you the greatest student of the WhatsApp University after your detailed article where you listed the 5 points, starting with, and you've detailed this in this article that you wrote for news18.com. Viewers, you can log on to news18.com and read that detailed article as well. But Mr. Rijiju, you started off by pointing out that how, much before the actual instrument of accession was signed, in July itself, Maharaja Hari Singh, in Pandit Nehru's own words, this is what you have said, he sent feelers to Pandit Nehru that he wanted to accede to India. And then you narrated how Pandit Nehru, asked that this is a special case, and you've questioned why it was treated as a special case. You've also questioned why Pandit Nehru did not intervene, even when Pakistan sent its raiders, militarily intervened in Jammu and Kashmir. You've also questioned how the decision to take this matter to United Nations and how that misadventure as far as plebiscite is concerned, that also was entered into. All of these points you have narrated there. But coming back to that question that I asked you, was this a genuine miscalculation and mistake or blunder, as you call it, by Pandit Nehru? Or do you think because of the population of Jammu and Kashmir, which was Muslim majority, and perhaps his friendship with Sheikh Abdullah, do you think there was any kind of vote bank politics at play here, or appeasement, as BJP often calls it, as far as the first family of Congress is concerned? Do you think that could have played a role as well when these decisions were taken, decisions which you call blunder?
I don't know what they are trying to prove. I am just putting out the things which every Indian should know. The nation must know the facts. That's all. I don't want to get into any debate and discussion. I just want to say that these records are there before the country, and we should go by records. We should go by facts, not by false narrative.
Thanks for that. Yes, we have a special guest this evening. Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju has really stirred the hornet's nest by talking about Pandit Nehru's alleged historic blunders, which has led to the current situation in Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Rijiju, sir, thank you so much for speaking to the viewers of CNN News 18. You've, of course, detailed the 5 blunders, as you call it, for Pandit Nehru. But if you can once again briefly summarize why you are calling it a historic blunder as far as his role in the Jammu and Kashmir problem is concerned.
Whatever I have stated through the article is to put the record straight and put it before the nation, because as an Indian, it is my duty, as the duty of any other Indian, to recognize and realize the mistakes which were committed by Nehruji. Now, this is a fact which I have not discovered. It is a fact which is there in the record, and the documents which I have quoted is from the parliament proceedings and what Nehru had stated in the Constituent Assembly and other materials and documents which are part of the history. I cannot change the history and nobody can change the history. Fact is fact. Now, for over last
Well, that big change, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, has taken over Twitter after a $44 billion deal. Musk tweeted, and I'm quoting, "The bird is freed." With the takeover, dramatic changes are already visible. It's time up for Twitter CEO Parag Agrawal and many other top executives. What kind of changes will this herald in the world of social media? Social media, which now affects democracies and political discourses. First up, a special report.
I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech.
It's official. Elon Musk now owns Twitter, and he's already fired 3 top executives. That's according to 2 sources familiar with the decision. So what does that mean for users? The answer could start with money.
Musk is paying a pretty hefty price.
About $44 billion to be precise. The owner of Tesla and SpaceX completed the purchase last night.
Twitter has challenges as a growth platform. That's why there's no second bidder.
Before the final deal, analyst Dan Ives speculated on how Musk could earn back his money. He says Twitter might leverage advertising and could become a subscription service. Users also might notice this difference.
We want to be just very reluctant to delete things, just be very cautious with permanent bans. Timeouts, I think, are better.
Musk tweeted a statement saying he still plans to impose consequences on people who misuse the platform, but it's not clear what that means.
When he says he believes in free speech, does he take care of that? Does he get rid of the N-word that I'm often called?
When it comes to Twitter bans, some wonder about one user in particular.
Will Donald Trump come back?
That remains to be seen.
Well, the implications are far beyond Donald Trump. Joining us on the broadcast is Mark Stewart from New York. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast today. What does this takeover by Elon Musk signify? What are we likely to witness? That's the question.
Yeah, that is the question. And I think that based off of our reporting, it sounds like that there may be a bit of a fundamental shift in the way that Twitter operates. Elon Musk yesterday, in a tweet to advertisers, made it very clear that he wants this to be a global town hall, if you will, a place to exchange ideas, which has very much been, I think, the early Twitter goal in all of this. He talked about an allegiance to humanity and using humility in this purchase. But the departure of 3 top executives in the C-suite shows, or is an indication that there could be a fundamental difference in philosophy and approach. And what I mean by that is the leaders in charge of Twitter now have been in favor of permanent bans about people who have said things that may have not been true or have been unkind or racist or sexist. Now, with their departure, it does open the way for Elon Musk to allow people, such as former President Trump, to return to the platform. That has not happened, but by systematically eliminating these three leaders in these top levels, the people who likely supported those philosophies of the past, it gives Elon Musk some room to do exactly what he wants.
It's well known, and that's the point you're hinting at, how social media plays a very crucial role in shaping political narratives. That's the modern reality. And from that point of view, and politically speaking, in terms of political discourse, public discourse, how you and I interact on Twitter, what kind of changes are we likely to witness?
Well, I think that is really the big question. I mean, that's a very good point you raise. I think that's what we are waiting to hear Elon Musk to outline. It's also going to be interesting to see about what he does with the platform beyond just a discussion point. He needs to get advertisers and he needs to make money. And so while we may enjoy having Twitter conversations, whether it be newsmakers or with friends, he also knows that there is a profit side to all of this. And he has brought up the idea of making a Twitter X, which would basically be an app where everything in your life could be handled. He wants to have encrypted direct messaging. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if he remains focused on Twitter as a conversation piece or as a broader app on our phones that could be used in our everyday lives beyond just conversation.
What kind of reactions have been witnessed in US? Different political parties, stakeholders. There's been a reaction from the Wall Street as well. The top executive, as you pointed out, in Twitter have faced the brunt. But the kind of reactions you witnessed through the day in US there?
Well, I think the reaction is everyone is kind of just holding their breath, waiting to see what he does next. I haven't heard any real pointed outcry from any U.S. leader in particular, but this morning it was interesting because this is such a global platform. Thierry Breton, who is the EU Commissioner for Internal Markets, he made it very clear to Trump that, I'm going to read this tweet he said. He said, in Europe, the bird will fly by our EU rules. And as you may well know, in the European Union, the requirements for a digital property to operate are much stricter than they are here in the US. So at least in Europe, there is a warning to Musk to remember there are rules in play, maybe not in other parts of the world, but at least in Europe there are.
Interesting. As you pointed out, Musk is someone who's an absolutist in many sense when it comes to freedom of speech and expression. He doesn't want Twitter to be an echo chamber. That's what he said. Now, what kind of shift that can lead to for Twitter? And I'm thinking aloud with you. You rightly said all of us are waiting to see what really happens. But if we were to ideate, and what kind of shift in terms of discourses we can see in the social media?
I mean, there's speculation that, it may turn to be a little bit more of a conservative voice because some of the people that he has banned from Twitter, namely President Trump, have had, not as a conservative voice or, I think that it seems like in social media there have been different, party affiliations, if you will, associated with different apps. But I think there is concern that because of Twitter's reach, if Musk perhaps reduces the requirements, particularly when it comes to issues of truthfulness, that it really could cause some chaos. We are about a week and a half away from midterm elections here in the United States. And as we know, one way people get information, one way people get information that can influence their votes is through social media platforms. So if Musk were to, let's just say tomorrow night, say the rules of the past are gone and it can go back to the way it was, there are political implications as well as economical ones.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much for your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to have that conversation with you. So that's Mark Stewart from New York giving us a perspective about what to expect and what not to expect. Everybody's watching all the developments with a bated breath. Joining us on the broadcast is also our panel of guests and expert, Mr. Pawan Duggal, who's a cyber law expert, is joining us on the broadcast. Andy Wilkins, who's a freelance journalist, is also with us on the broadcast. Professor Damian Tambini, who's a professor at the London School of Economics, is also with us on the show. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of the show tonight. Mr. Duggal, I'm coming to you first. The implications or the message for India, what can we expect?
Expect a new avatar of Twitter. It is the winds of new change that are blowing in. And if you look at what Elon Musk has done in the first one day of taking charges, he's got marching orders for the top 4 officials of the company, giving a strong message to the company: you either will adhere to the new vision or be prepared to exit. But more significantly, I expect this particular Twitter to grow tremendously in terms as a political tool for increasing the political influence of Elon Musk as not just the richest industrialist or the guy in the world, but more significantly, the most powerful media personality across the social media. Why? Because Twitter is something special. It's being used by all the heads of the states, political leaders, bureaucrats, celebrities, and thinkers. So it's the best way and the only source for all kinds of news, for all news agencies and news organizations. So I expect a lot of change. I expect more criticism to be allowed, to be ventilated. I would expect the algorithms to be tweaked in such a manner that the critical tweets are not subdued or hidden below other tweets. I expect more effective remedies and redress mechanisms to be made available to the users who have now been facing utmost trolling, cyber harassment, and nuisance on Twitter, which Twitter has not been able to address.
No, Mr. Dugal, I completely agree with you that the manner in which we must frame this entire discussion, as I go to my other guest as well, is what are the political implications of it, not in terms of A or B political party, but as Mr. Dugal was pointing out, there's a huge implication of social media when it comes to political discourses and our political choices, whether it's academics or whether it's, in the public discourse and researches. It has been shown that social media can influence the manner in which you vote, the manner in which you make choices, more importantly, how you consume information. On that note, Professor Tambini, I'm coming to you. The takeover by Elon Musk, what does it signify? And the political shift, if I were to talk to you about that, what kind of shift can be witnessed?
Well, it remains to be seen. There's been criticism from both sides of bias in the algorithm. And I think that just adds weight to the claims for regulation and transparency to be improved. But I think Musk has so far said he wants to do 2 things. He wants to build some kind of super app, a little bit like the Chinese Alibaba app, to roll in all kinds of things like e-commerce services into this app. And he also wants to create a platform for free speech. And I think he's going to find out very quickly, and if you'll excuse the pun, that whilst he thinks free speech isn't rocket science, he's going to find out he's on a steep learning curve very, very quickly.
And why do you say that?
The reason that he has to think much harder about free speech is that his assumption, I think he assumes that he can, by promoting free speech, just cut out a lot of costs for Twitter. So reduce the costs in content moderation, which have gone up hugely in recent years. But that's not going to be the case for various reasons. Advertisers are going to push him to moderate because of brand risk.
Yes.
There is a huge raft of regulation coming down the pipe, the Digital Services Act in the EU, which is going to oblige Twitter to invest more, not less, in content moderation. And users themselves will also continue to call for safety. Because after all, this is a journey Twitter's been on before. Jack Dorsey started the company with a very radical philosophy of freedom of speech. And he was dragged kicking and screaming to much more content moderation, much more protection of users.
Professor Tambini, allow me an interjection here. Allow me an interjection here before I go to Andy Wilkins.
I think Musk isn't going in the same direction.
Musk is going in the same direction is what you're saying. If social media and the tools in social media can lead to revolutions, big changes, reform, it may also pave way for chaos and anarchy. And that's the fear which many people are talking about. Is that an overblown concern or perhaps a legitimate one?
Well, if you'll permit me, I think it's a a simplistic one in many ways. I think obviously we can see events like the Arab Spring, which was initially greeted as a great liberation for the region from autocracy. But then later we saw precisely the kind of problems of chaos when a political vacuum was exploited by particular political actors. So I think it's simplistic to say that it's either democracy or chaos. I think what we're seeing is a longer term wave of learning, and the regulation that I mentioned, which is being particularly in Europe devised, is trying to strike a subtle balance. It's trying to bring the rule of law onto platforms. So free speech, of course, is not absolute, as Musk is going to learn. It is balanced with other rights and with the rights of others. And the process of bringing rights onto these dominant platforms, giving some kind of accountability to citizens, and making sure that Elon Musk is not he himself the judge of balancing those rights is what must be done, and it's going to take some time. There are problems of potential censorship in this new regulatory turn, but Musk himself met with Thierry Breton, who is the European Commissioner designing and leading on the new regulations coming out of Brussels, and I think he understands that for all the bluster about free speech, he is going to have to design some smart solutions.
Andy, do you agree with what Professor Tambani is saying, that that's going to be a learning curve for him, and he'll get to know very, very soon that free speech, as he talks about it, is not an absolutist argument. There are rules, there are laws of the land in Europe and other parts of the world, here in India, that Twitter will have to comply with. Andy?
Oh yeah, like fully agree. Like this isn't just going to be like 5 minutes later and Elon has got what he has achieved. It's going to take a gradual amount of time. You know, they say Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to be the exact same case for Elon Musk and Twitter at the end of the day. That's how you have to see it. Realistically, especially in the UK, in the sports scene, social media has come under severe scrutiny for the amount of abuse that is launched at football players, for example. Elon Musk has got to get on top of the abuse in the same way the likes of Instagram, Facebook and other platforms are also being told you've got to get on top of it, or otherwise you risk getting fined, you risk getting punished in the long run. So ultimately, it's not going to be, 5 minutes later, I've got everything sorted. He's going to have to find out what works and what doesn't work. Yes, he may enter himself in for some scrutiny throughout the next 6 months to say 18 months, potentially. It could be before we actually see a proper change. But this is a man who, in himself, he obviously will be wanting to he will obviously be eyeing the pound sign wherever he can. So if he can milk out a few quid out of advertisers, etc., by all means he will go down that line. But ultimately he has got to realise there is a line that shouldn't be crossed. If he allows that extreme amount or that extreme group of way of life to come back onto the platform, then ultimately that is where he can unfortunately see a downfall perhaps, and maybe, who knows, he may not get his 44 billion back if he ever decides to sell it again. He's the richest man. He, I'm sure, knows that. Mr. Duggal, I'm coming to you. Translate that for, Twitter, politically speaking, is a contested social media space, whether it's about the announcements of the government, the left, the right, the center, whether it's about contested history or polity. That's where the discourse is building these days. When it comes to a country like India, and we recently had the intermediary guidelines, just about an hour ago, we reported how the government of India wants more and more compliance, and this includes companies like Twitter and Facebook. With this takeover, compliance in India, how does that really fit in?
Well, I think with this takeover, compliance is going to be a logical block that's going to come onto the landscape. For the richest man in the world, he knows that for getting the right monies, he has to do utmost focus on compliance. And as you rightly pointed out an hour before, the new amendments to the Information Technology Rules 2021 have been announced and notified. which effectively means that far more compliance would be required to be done by Twitter in the Indian context. Unfortunately, the previous management of Twitter had taken a confrontationist approach vis-a-vis Indian authorities and Indian law by saying that, look, we are above the law and that we will not comply with Indian law. No wonder Twitter found itself last year, after the expiry of the statutory period of compliance, that they got exposed to 4 different FIRs in 4 different states for criminal action, which they are now going ahead and...
We've lost that line with Mr. Dugal. Professor Tambini, I'm coming to you. Whether the algorithm of Twitter is tilted towards the left or the right, there is no transparency for a particular user. And now, right now, I'm talking purely from the point of view of a user, of citizen, which should know how the information is being generated, how it is being consumed. Can we imagine a day and age where there could be some kind of transparency in terms of how algorithms are functioning, how our data is being used? We talk so much about disclosure and privacy policies as to what extent these companies should make that disclosure to individuals. But the user and its data, and I see this rather provocatively, is up for manipulation by either side and depending on how they want to use it. Professor Tambini.
Well, that's one of the things that the new regulatory settlement in Europe is designed to deal with.
Yeah.
So it's for 10 years now we've been having these debates about how to make these hugely influential algorithms that could potentially change the course of elections, for example, how they are designed, what is the special source that decides which tweet appears at the top of your feed.
Yeah.
It's obviously crucial to know more about that, and large companies have consistently refused to open them up. I would, however, even go a stage further. Yes, absolutely, we need better transparency. The new European laws and laws around the world will argue for that. But I think that there are other things that could be done. For example, the International NGO Article 19 has asked for the unbundling of those algorithms that determine relevance to news feeds, so that they are separate from the main advertising industry of the platform and potentially opened up to other providers, as well as transparency for those algorithms. I would say, however, that all of these measures, to the extent that they're backed up by regulators and the law, could go both ways. So in more authoritarian countries, they could be used to shut down the ability of platforms to provide open and democratic platforms for debate.
Interesting.
So in Europe, all of these laws will be subject to the European Convention on Human Rights and the protections for freedom of speech in the law.
Okay.
And whilst the UN has multiple international charters for free speech, it's only really in Europe where you have a court which is able to protect those fundamental rights of free speech against governments. That's not the case, for example, in India. So it's quite important, as we put these safeguards in place, as we open up the algorithms, as we put new regulatory obligations, if you like, to civilize these platforms, that there are checks and balances and there are protections for free speech, because Twitter is not only a speaker, if you like, it's also a platform for the speech of others. And it raises a number of really new technical and difficult issues in free speech
unbundling bit,
that we're going to have to
Professor Tambini,
work through.
I've lost 1 minute. I've lost 1 minute.
Democratic governments and also international organizations as well.
Yes, Andy, I want to give you that 1 last minute that I have on the broadcast. The unbundling of the algorithms, putting the user in the center. It's a double-edged argument, as the professor rightly said, because in more authoritarian regimes, you could have the government misusing the data, or in an alternate scenario, you could have these large corporations who do not really have the kind of disclosure that they should really have. In the next few days, in the next few years, as the jurisprudence develops, in the interest of the citizens, at least in the EU, not in the UK per se, perhaps there are rules that have caught up with the rise of these big social media giants.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, there's no two ways about it. I think as we've become more developed as a society, whether it be in the UK, the EU, all over the world. We've become, as these social media giants have grown, ultimately governments across the land have taken notice of what these social media companies are doing. They're now rising up and saying, look, we want to put these policies in place. You have to meet them, or otherwise we're going to ban you. We're going to shut you down. And it's
you know, Andy, I'm very sorry I'm interrupting you there. I'm completely out of time, but I appreciate you joining us on the broadcast, Professor Tammany, Andy Wilkins. We also had Mr. Pavan Duggal. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on the broadcast. This way or the other, it should always be the data of you and me, our privacy, and how the corporations and governments which are using it. That should be the point of focus. With that, it's a wrap. Ayushman joins you on the other side.
Hello and welcome to News Epicenter with me, Ayushman Singh Jamal. Breaking news coming in. This is in connection to the Kerala gold smuggling case. We're getting exclusive details from the Enforcement Directorate. Now, as per sources, the Enforcement Directorate has filed a rejoinder in the Supreme Court against the Kerala government. These are the details we're getting in as we speak. Remember, the Enforcement Directorate had sought the transfer of the trial in the gold smuggling case from Kerala to Karnataka, claiming a free and fair trial is not possible in Kerala. We have exclusively accessed the rejoinder